All right, today we are talking consistency in your ball striking, which really ultimately starts with consistency in your setup. I can promise you this, about 80% of the problems I see in ball striking all originate from something very, very tiny changing in someone's setup that ultimately lead to their ball control going out the window. And when I say ball control, I mean not only contact, but just their ability to hit the shot the way that they want. So I'm a big alignment stick guy. If you've been watching any of my YouTube or Instagram for a long period of time, you see that I always have sticks. So lesson number one is go get you some alignment sticks. Do not use your golf clubs. That is not a good option. Go get you some alignment sticks. Most golf shops have them. If not, go to Home Depot and get those those orange rods that you see. These are sticks that I've had for years. The nice thing is they're very, very durable. They're probably going to last a long time. So the first part of your keys to setting up is you have to make sure that you're lined up straight. If I am trying to line up down the driving range, there's a flag out there, and I am aimed way right, I am going to have to do something to get the ball to go to the target. And for most people, we aim too far right, and then we come over the top or swing left to get the ball on target. That is not a good option. When I go look on the other side of the range where the public is hitting, no one ever has an alignment stick on the ground checking their aim. So that's number one, is I gotta check my aim. So I'll go ahead and set up a ball here. I like to hit in lines. It kind of reveals, some things, and I can make a video about what could a divot actually reveal. But I like to have the alignment stick on the outside of the ball aimed at the target. And the reason I like that is that if that stick is aimed at the target, that means my ball is aimed slightly left. And like I already said, most people aim too far right, so that really helps me get an orientation of my body actually being left of the ball, which is going to be left of the target. There is a blue flag out there where my club face is lined up, but my body is actually aimed a little bit left. The reason that everybody aims right is because they aim their body at the target, which instinctively aims this line more right of the target. So that's number one, is we've got to make sure that we are intending on lining up correctly. Now, what does it really mean to be lined up correctly? What should be aimed at the target? Well, there's only one thing, and that's the club face. The club face is the one thing that should be aimed at the target for a straight shot. So one of the things that you should be practicing when you're doing this is somewhat going through your routine and just aiming the face at the target. We're not talking about ball position yet. We're not talking about anything other than I've got to get the face aimed where I want. So there's two ways to work on aiming the face. Number one would be making these groove lines perpendicular to this stick on the ground. That would be number one. So if I look down and I can see the face is open to that blue stick or closed, then I know that it's off. Number two would be, and I'm getting a little bit ahead, but I'm going to take this stick and I'm going to put it on the back of the ball, because that's the part of the ball that I hit. And I've got an alignment stick here where I'm trying to match the face, this line of the face, with that stick. And you can see from the face on, right now that face is totally square. If I can do that, that's the beginning of me having some level of consistency in my ball striking, or in my setup, that hopefully will lead to the ball striking. Okay, so we've talked about the club face, we've talked about alignment, we've talked about why people tend to not aim very well. By the way, that is all a skill. That stuff takes a lot of practice. I coach a ton of competitive juniors, and I can promise you the first thing I always look at is where are we aimed and how are we setting up with the club face. I can't tell you how many times I've had to correct something like that. And you would think that over years and years and years of practice and playing, people would be good at this, but they're not. That's why you see tour players. Go watch Ian Poulter's Instagram. He has those sticks on the ground every time that he practices. Okay, so we've talked about that. Now the other things that we should focus on our setup that are on the ground. So what else is on the ground? Well, our feet are on the ground, the ball is on the ground, and the club face is on the ground. So let's start with the feet. So I'm going to leave this here. Actually, let's go to the ball position for a second. So why does ball position really matter? Well, ball position, where the ball is in your swing arc, largely depends what kind of shot you're going to hit. So let me explain what that means. So let's say I have a 7-iron and I like to have the ball forward, okay, like this. Well, the more forward in the stance the ball is, there's two things are going to happen. One, you are going to swing more left, and I'm talking as a right-handed golfer, because as the club is working through the arc, it is moving more and more towards the target, more left. So your club path or your swing direction are generally going to be more left. Number two, the club face has more time to close. The further that I'm swinging that way, the face has more time to close. Just think about that. If I'm going this way, I'm catching the ball later in the arc. So if you're someone who's hitting pull draws all day and you don't really know why, I would start with, I bet your ball position is too far forward. Let's flip it. Let's say that the ball is too far back. Well, what's going to be the consequence of that? Well, you're going to be swinging a little bit more from the inside, and you're going to be having the face a little bit more open. So you might be trying to hit a fade, and I can promise you having the ball off your back foot is very, very difficult to hit a fade. So you've got to make sure that the ball position fits the type of shot you're trying to hit. For today's purposes, we're really just trying to hit the ball fairly straight, maybe a small draw. So for a 7-iron, I would want the ball just slightly forward of middle. We'll call that like an inch and a half, or inch to a half inch. Not too much. I like to have a stick between my feet because this is one of those things that's very hard for people to see. Okay, so we've talked about ball position. Now next would be my stance line. Wherever my feet are aimed is largely going to dictate what type of swing I'm trying to put on the ball from a curve perspective. So here we go, big stick guy. I've got my other stick and I'm gonna make another tee. We've already got one tee. Now I'm making another tee. There we go. And I'm just making sure that this line is parallel to this line. So obviously, if this line is parallel to that line, this stance line is going to be left. Again, we talked about this when we talked about alignment. You should feel like you're aimed left of the target because guess what? You are aimed left of the target. Your body is physically aimed. I'm right now aimed basically on the edge of this tree while trying to hit it in the middle of these trees. Okay, so as I'm checking my stance line, I'm not trying to get too close to this stick. I want to have a couple inches because when I follow through, I don't want to run into the stick. But I need this visual aid to help me make sure I'm aimed the way that I want. I can't tell you how many times I see someone that's overdrawing it and they're aimed way right and they have no idea. You see, this kind of stuff, it may sound really simple and you may be watching this video going, well, I already do all this. If you're not using sticks, I can promise you that you have no idea about your setup day in, day out. I was just sent some videos from the President's Cup where there's a video of Scotty Scheffler. He has a stick, the blue stick, and he has the white stick. He has both of them on the ground. That is the #1 player in the world, and he has 2 sticks on the ground. And I have seen countless videos of him on the range doing that. So just be very, very diligent to check all of this. It is so easy to check, yet it seems so difficult for most of us just to do that every day. Okay, so we've talked about our aim, our ball position, and our stance line. Just one more note on the stance line. If you are trying to hit some curve, then it is totally fine to have your feet aimed to the right or aimed to the left. You have to be careful on what the consequence of that is with ball position. For example, if I start aiming more left, that's going to shift my ball slightly back and vice versa. But you're not going to go play a round of golf probably hitting every shot dead straight. So if you want to move the feet around, that's fine. I'm talking about a block station where we are hitting the same shot over and over, like if I was just trying to hit a nice straight 7-iron. Okay, the last thing that we've talked about, which you really is very difficult to get a visual on, would be everything off the ground. So my knees up. So these things are going to have to be checked through video and just doing some very basic checks like with your club or maybe another alignment stick. So let's start with my knees. So as I'm getting my feet set up, you would think that like my knees would be good, but I'll oftentimes see people where their right leg is extended and their left leg is really bent and they start to kind of aim way right. So I would make sure that your knees, hips, and shoulders are all very neutral relative to what your stance line is. We would call that like getting crossed up. Your swing's probably going to feel a little off if you get crossed up. So what you can do as a simple test would be, actually I'm going to move this a little closer. I feel a little far away. There we go. I'm going to set up, and as I get set, I'm going to take this, I'm going to put this on my shoulders, and you can see right there that my shoulder line is dead perfect with that alignment stick on the ground. That would be a very, very basic thing to check. Another thing that we can check is how much we're leaning right or left at address. You'll get a better view here on the face on. One thing that you'll see me do sometimes, especially in short game, is I'll have someone get set up, and right now I'm trying to have my nose fairly even with the ball. So I'm gonna drop this. You can see that just hit the stick. So obviously my nose is where I'm likely gonna hit the ground. So if I have that ball even with the ball, that's good news. I'm probably gonna shift a little bit left on the downswing. You know what I'll frequently do is I'll be standing at this camera angle watching someone hit, and they'll be hitting it fat. And I'll say, go ahead and set up, and they'll be set up like this, and I'll drop the ball, and you'll see it lands right here. And then they'll go, oh, I had no idea it was setting up like that. That is a very, very easy thing to do. Vice versa, if you're hitting a lot of thin rights, like you're coming down very, very steep, over the top maybe, I would bet that you're probably setting up something like this. Doesn't look very good on the down the line. If I were to do this, you can see that ball just landed in front. That's likely gonna lead to me hitting the ground too late. So those are very basic things. The only other thing that you should check is where is my spine at address? Now, this is gonna change a lot depending on the type of club you're hitting, but in general, we don't wanna see our hips slid to the right like this at address. This is the most common error someone does at address that they can't see. So you can kind of see as I get set like that. Now I'm exaggerating, but you can see my hips are slid, my shoulders are left. Now you can see I'm not gonna be able to rotate very well, and I'm gonna start having some tip towards the target. That would be a huge problem. So let's say I'm set up like that. If I were to do this, you can see that the club is kind of pointing at my right foot. So I'm kind of looking at my spine. So I like to go like this, put this in the middle of my chest on my belly button, and just feel like I kind of bump into my left knee like that. If I do that, it gives me a little bit of right side bend. Obviously with the driver, I'm looking for a little bit more. I've done a video before where I'm trying to almost touch here. So in that case, if I drop the ball, it would be behind, which is totally fine because the ball's on a tee. So these are just a few ideas on how to get your setup a little bit more consistent. And again, 80% of the problems that I see in ball striking originate with some problem at address. So my advice to you in your golfing journey is to be very, very diligent with this stuff. I know it seems easy, but it really isn't. And to be able to correlate the ball flight with something in your setup is very difficult. So you might need some help. You may need to reach out to someone for some help. Reach out to me if you need some help. So go get some alignment sticks, start checking this every day. Even if you feel a little bit lost, that's fine. It's a good habit to be building, and I guarantee you that will help you in your future range sessions, and ultimately your ball striking will improve.